So let's take a closer look at it. President Donald Trump has warned Iran against putting any mines in the Strait of Hormuz. It's a crucial transit point, as we've been hearing from John, for 20% of the world's oil and gas. U.S. Central Command has released these images of what Trump says are 10 Iranian ships the U.S. military has hit and destroyed. He says the boats were meant to be laying mines. Trump also warned of grave consequences if Iran does not remove mines from the strait. Okay, joining us from Washington, D.C. is Jason Campbell. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute and a former civilian Pentagon official. Also in Washington, Naveed Shah, political director of Common Defense and a former board member of the Virginia War Memorial. Gents, thanks very much indeed for joining us here in Al Jazeera. Naveed, I'd like to start with you. As we've been hearing, the Strait of Hormuz is a critical element in this theatre of war, as illustrated indeed by Donald Trump warning the Iranians not to lay mines there, and now these ships apparently that were in the process or about to lay mines in the strait being targeted by the United States. Do you think it would be, Naveed, an Iranian strategy to lay mines there?
You know, it might be part of their strategy to try to block the Strait of Hormuz by any means they can, whether it's by mines or with their own Navy. I think the fact of the matter is that we have about, half the Navy, it seems like at times, in the region. But how many of our ships are able to, demine an area is kind of up for debate. I think we have maybe three of them that could possibly do that. And they're all, tied up in other things right now. It seems like a really dangerous proposition for us to try to escort these ships through that strait, as the Pentagon's leaders have already expressed concern about that idea.
Naveed, speaking as a veteran, tell us how worrying it would be for serving personnel on the ships, and indeed for those conducting logistics and trying to strategize what their plans should be if mines are laid down in the strait. It's
really concerning for military family members and the service members that are on those ships to have to, traverse through mine-infested waters is a really scary proposition, something that our Navy, I don't think, has dealt with in a long, long time.
Jason Campbell, what's your take on it? Because it's important for the U.S. to get the strait up and running as soon as possible, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. I think with the mining, this is indicative of this escalatory trajectory we see here in the war, I think, on both sides. Mining the strait is absolutely one of the more extreme cards up the Iranian sleeve here. And as Naveed said, the U.S. is limited in its ability to demine the strait, given that it just decommissioned its last handful of minesweepers based in the region last fall. So this could really keep this conflict hot for a while and lead to some really big issues as the 68 or so oil tankers stuck in the Persian Gulf will remain stranded there for the foreseeable future.
And Naveed, from your point of view, what's your take on what we've heard from the various elements of the administration, be it the Secretary of Defense, the Press Secretary, and indeed the President himself, on the likely timeline of the war? Are they all on the same page, do you think?
It definitely doesn't seem like they're on the same page. It seems like we have a very accordion-like timeline that we're hearing about. First, it was going to take a week, and then it was going to take 6 months, and now it might take 4 weeks. I think I saw someone online said that the hardest part of a 2-week-long military incursion is the first 20 years, as we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. I served in Iraq in the Army in 2009 and 10. It took us a long time to withdraw our troops from there, and I hate to see that this is exactly the same path that Iran, this conflict with Iran is going down.
Jason, indeed, has stated U.S. objectives in this war, that they've been fluid, haven't they, to say the least, flowing from eliminating the nuclear threat to the missile threat to regime change to unconditional surrender. And now we've been hearing Caroline Leavitt saying that Trump will call an end to it just when he's ready. Is that a coherent strategy from your point of view?
Well, that's a great point. And much more than the timeline, be it days or weeks, is what are the strategic objectives you're trying to achieve? And the senior leadership from President Trump on down has tied itself in knots to touch on a number of things, but not commit to any set of objectives. And we saw it just last night in the president's press conference, referring back to the the obliteration of the nuclear program back last June under Midnight Hammer, which, again, supposedly was the justification for, or part of the justification for this most recent war. So until those strategic objectives are laid out comprehensively, the timeline is going to remain elastic.
And Jason, also, you have to factor in the Israeli aspect to this and whether or not they're in lockstep with the U.S.
That's absolutely right. The insinuation here is that the U.S. will just stop the war, potentially declare victory, and pull back its resources. What that doesn't account for is, again, Israeli objectives here and what they want to achieve, and what Iran might do should the U.S. decide unilaterally to back away. We don't know that they won't continue to keep striking some of the targets they've been going after now for the last 10 days.
Naveed, as I say, you have experience of serving in the theatre of war. Would this apparent lack of coherent objective filter down to the rank and file in the military conducting the war, or would they just be sort of laser focused on whatever their orders are?
It's really difficult as a soldier on the ground to stay laser focused on what your orders are when it's not clear what the overarching mission is. Because of the changing targets, because of the changing mission sets, it can be really difficult to understand what your role in this theater of combat is. And then it's harder to stay focused on that. At the same time, family back home are hearing things on the news. They're confused. What this administration has failed to do is make a strong case for this conflict. I don't think they have one. And I think if they did, they should have gone to Congress and gotten approval for this conflict before undertaking it. The president as commander-in-chief has a role to play in defense, but offensively, the power to declare war lies with Congress.
Jason, do you think, from the point of view of the military calculation that was taken before this war, that were they as prepared as they should have been? It sounds like they didn't factor in the degree of response, this horizontal response, as it's called, from into Gulf nations.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the hope at the outset was that the airstrikes across Iran would be sufficient to instigate the street protests we saw last month, or excuse me, back in January, and help to weaken or even topple the regime. And what they've learned is that even though they decapitated it by taking out Ali Khamenei early, is that using air power alone it is much more difficult to get that effect. And with Iran's response, I think the horizontal escalation was very apparent very early, but I think they also may have miscalculated the resilience of some of the Gulf nations and other states who have been able to thus far have a really high rate of deflecting some of the munitions that are sent their way, and has not had the pressure they were hoping for on Washington to stop these operations.
Naveed, finally, to bring it back to U.S. shores, normally with military campaigns like this, you get a kind of rally round the flag effect, don't you? Does it feel different this time, or are you seeing that?
I think what's really concerning to me right now about that is the way the Pentagon has been withholding information. We just found out today that more than 140 U.S. troops have been seriously injured since the start of this campaign. Up until now, we heard it was maybe 12 to 18, and now we're in the hundreds. It's pretty scary to know that, and it's hard for people to rally around the flag again when a case hasn't been clearly made. The Ayatollah wasn't a great guy. Nobody's crying over his loss or what this regime has been doing in Iran, but I think this administration not being clear about what their goals are, what the exit strategy is, people are really worried about getting caught up in another 20-year conflict in the Middle East.
Gents, appreciate your time. Joining us there from Washington, D.C., that's Naveed Shah and also Jason Campbell. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.